Hello, my name is Angel Unda and this is the ATD YouTube channel in English. Today we are going to look at the inverter-converter assembly. This is a very important piece or component in hybrid and electric vehicle. Here we have a third generation of Toyota Prius inverter-converter, and this is from a fourth generation in Toyota hybrid vehicles, inverter-converter assembly. Okay, what is this component? Why we need an inverter-converter in hybrid and electric vehicle? Okay, pay attention on that. Hopefully you understand this good. In hybrid and electric vehicle we have high voltage batteries. A high voltage battery uses DC current, DC voltage. However, the motor generator hybrid and electric vehicle use are three phases permanent magnet rotor, three phases electric motor. So it's impossible to connect the battery DC to the electric motor, which works in three phases, DC to AC. It's impossible to connect directly. So we need a piece, a component which connects DC to AC, even AC to DC. This is the inverter component. So if we paint a motor generator, which is three phases machine, UVW, we need to connect it, to be connected with the high voltage battery. This is the high voltage battery, for example 200 volts in a hybrid vehicle, 200 volts, 350 volts in electric vehicles approximately. So this is three phases, and this is positive and negative. This is DC current and AC current. We have AC and DC. To connect the battery to the electric machine, the electric motor, we need the inverter. This is the inverter. The inverter change DC to AC using transistors, and the inverter change AC to DC using a rectifier with diodes. Okay, so this is the function of the inverter, to change DC to AC and AC to DC. Even inside of this component, this inverter-converter assembly, we have another component called converter, which change the value of the voltage. I mean, in an electric vehicle, even in a hybrid vehicle, we have a 12-volt system. This is the auxiliary system. So we need a battery with a negative pole connected to the chassis ground and a positive pole. Think about this electric car doesn't have an generator, alternator. It has an electric motor and a high voltage battery. Now the current and the voltage to the auxiliary system, 12-volt system, it's coming from the high voltage battery. So I need to connect this battery to the converter, and the converter use the DC from the high voltage battery and change the value to the auxiliary system. The converter change the value, reduce the value and maintain it in 14.5 or 4 volts. Okay, this is the converter, the lower DC converter function. Sometimes hybrid and electric vehicle need a booster. I mean, they need to create more voltage than the battery, need to raise the voltage. This is the boost converter function. For that, they use a coil, a reactor, they use a transistor to create a peak, a very high peak, and that peak is going to be saving a condenser, a capacitor. So remember that this component has a connection from the high voltage battery. In this third generation is this part, in this fourth generation is this part of the inverter, converter assembly. Even we have a connection for the MG and the motor generator. This is from MG1 in Toyota, third generation, and MG2 in Toyota, third generation. And here in fourth generation, the manufacturer has the two MG1 and the two motors, MG1 and MG2, in the same part. We have here the VUW for MG1 and VUW for MG2. Even we have the connection for the high voltage electric motor compressor for the AC system, and in this part we have it too. We have it as well. Okay. Apart from that, we have a cooling system, cooling pipe connection, inlet and outlet. Here we have it as well, and the electric. We have a control unit to manage the function. This is the electric connection for the control unit, and we have the electric connector connection for the control unit in the third generation. Even we have, the last thing we have is the connection for the lower DC converter, the outside of the 12 volt system, which provides or supply with 14.4 volts. This is this point, this is the positive, and here we have the positive. This connection goes to the fuse or the block under the hood, and then is connected with the 12 volts battery. This is the B plus for the auxiliary system. So imagine that this component is very important. Electric vehicle has it too. Instead of having two electric motor connection, it's very usual to have just one. Some electric car has two electric motor, one in the front rear and in the front axle, one in the rear axle, sorry. So the thing is that it doesn't matter what kind of vehicle I have. I need to know what is the goal of this component, to have the knowledge to diagnosticate the problem, to troubleshoot the problem the car has. Okay, so hopefully you understand this very well. Sorry for my English mistakes and expressions. See you soon in another video. Bye.